17-year-old. Robert Robinson is 17 in the 1700s. He goes to a gospel meeting because he wants to disrupt it and cause some rebellion. But when he shows up, he hears a message like he's never heard before, and his life is completely changed. He tells his friends, we're not going to do what we came here to do, because I've heard something that I've needed in my life for a long time. This 17-year-old Robert goes back to his home and he begins to pen the words to a poem that then became a song that most of you know. A song that's probably special to your parents and certainly your grandparents. It's one of my favorite songs. And the song written by the 17-year-old sounds something like this. Remember where we began this afternoon? That a song out of tune is not that fun to listen to. I asked Millie to play out of tune. You did a great job. It was uncomfortable for all of us in the room for just a moment. I'm going to give you a chance to tune that up, all right? So, just for a moment as we wrap up, I want you to think about this. A life lived out of tune is no fun for the listener and no fun for the person living it. Robert Robinson would write these words as a part of that song. Come thou fount of every blessing, and tune my heart to sing thy grace. Because he knew my life is out of tune, and I want so badly to be and to live a life that is worthy of being Shazammed. And yet, here's the coolest thing. As I was getting ready for this talk, I'm trying to get screenshots of my phone, and I'm trying to show you what Shazam does. And I was holding it up to get it. I captured a song, and then this popped up. True story. This was hilarious. It said, we didn't quite catch that. Please get closer to the sound and try again. I got a screenshot of that really quick because I thought, that's it. That's the way. That's the whole point I want to make. My mistake led to that truth that said we can't quite hear the song, but the solution is simple. You're just not close enough to the source. Get closer to the source and try it again. The story of Joseph ends that way. Genesis 50. Look at what he says. Joseph says to his brothers, come closer to me. When they had done so, he said, I'm your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now, don't be distressed. Don't be angry. Not with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you to save your lives by a great deliverance. Students, as we close, understand that some of your lives are out of tune, but they're not so badly out of tune that they can't be fixed with just a few minor adjustments. You have to get closer to the source and try again. You say, how do I do that? What if every day you just spent time in the Word of God? Or maybe a daily conversation with God, or a daily confession to a friend, an act of compassion for somebody who's wounded, or a time of praise and thanksgiving, or an opportunity to share the message with the searching. Minor adjustments that take a life that is out of tune and put it back into tune. Don't merely listen to the Word, James says, and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. But the man who looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom, and continues to do this, not forgetting what he has heard, but doing it, we could translate it and say his life will be so perfectly in tune that everyone will want to download it. So years later, Robert Robinson is in a carriage sitting across from a woman. Robert Robinson, many years after he first wrote that song, he was sitting in that carriage weeping because his life had fallen apart. And as he sits there and he cries, the woman is humming a song that sounds like this. She says, sir, are you okay? And he says, no, I'm not. She says, what's wrong? And he says, my life is falling apart. Tragedy after tragedy, relationship broken after relationship. And she says, you need to know the words to the song that I was just singing moments ago. Robert Robinson, as he tells the story in his biography, looks to this woman and says, Madam, I wrote that song when I was 17 years old. And I would give the treasures of 1,000 worlds if I had them to feel that way again. I know there's a 17-year-old or 18-year-old or 13-year-old whose life is so drastically out of tune. And it's not fun to listen to, and nobody wants to listen to it any longer, especially you. And I would say the solution is so very simple. It's not hard. Get closer to the source and try again. It is not within my power to place the divine teachings of God directly into the heart of another person. All I can do is lay them on the surface of the heart, so that when the heart breaks, they're the first to fall in. And if that's happened in any way during our time together, may God alone receive all of the glory. Get closer to the source and try again. And I'll see you along the wall.